You may have noticed in social media these days that there's a unified measure being taken by the Generation Z spinner beanies. They uniformly equate the manner of America's victory at war over the Japanese, which were the nuclear bomb, with oppression of the Native Americans, the idea of slavery in America, exploitation of the third world, and religious persecution of minorities, because they evidently have some sort of nostalgic longing, sentimental attachment to the far better days of Adolf Hitler. What else makes no sense any other way? Japan was victims like the Native Americans and the black man, so they must unify against the white. And this mindset feeds into truly craven depravity towards a deaf person who was used in maniacal, psychotic Manson ordeals by organized criminals on every level of the government in a genocide program. They're defending the Axis when they defend Japan. I don't like the manner of how it was won, and neither did the sailors on my father's ship. But I didn't support Reagan either. I didn't support the arms race. I wanted détente with Russia. The Axis was who pulled us into into Vietnam. The Vichy French, who we defended there, were allies of Japan in World War II. The corkscrewed tongues of UW Dialectical are professional exploitation artists when it comes to what they realize other people don't know. They realize that other people don't know that Japan and France were Vichy. They believed in Hitler. And that far from being the victims of World War II, they were the instigators of World War II. And far from America's liberals wanting to commit genocide in Vietnam, there was a huge resistance to the rescue of Vichy France in Vietnam due to the Cold War fascism of Hollywood and Axis Hollywood. And all of the Axis stories about how we're punishing Native Americans and the black man by celebrating our victory at sea in World War II come from Clint Eastwood's branch of Hollywood, who've played a game of Russian roulette with the AIDS virus throughout it, murdering innocent people, calling it real estate deals over a penny. And how they pulled this was because Yoko Ono was given a card that I gave back to Adrian Belew, trusting him, which was insane gullibility. Robert Fripp wrote me a postcard, and I gave it to Adrian Belew. And he evidently gave it to Yoko Ono, who used it to sell me into slavery, to make my murder a snuff film to raise the value of Robert's card. And we also know that the Boy Scout system in Michael Reagan's Pittsburgh Christian clubs, these Boy Scouts were tied to the war games that went on in Maine, from which Robert Card came and shot and massacred a number of people, including the deaf in a bowling alley, to announce the rabble have a stake in the story narrative of dispossession of a deaf white person who's being used by their sanctimonious fascism. The sanctimonious fascism claims that real estate demands they establish and control a narrative about John Lennon that doesn't make any sense. They said that the martyrdom of Lennon represents the people who they claim killed him, and that the only guilt is somebody who was a child who didn't know anything about it, not getting better of it, and stopping Lennon before he pulled what was obviously his Houdini. Lennon's mystical phenomenon was programmed into a story that they refuse to tell. They want to make a contract on America. The British schemers in the Rolling Stones, who worked first with David Geffen, the Zionist on the AIDS genocide, and now Netanyahu, who put his name on my father's murder with Ono and Trump, and the German Green Party, injecting parochial values for the riffraff on Mount Desert Island that produced Robert Card over Robert's card. Netanyahu. They now celebrate with the Rolling Stones concert in Tel Aviv his genocide, his war on toddlers in Gaza. And if you ask UW Dialectical or any woman in Seattle on whom I wouldn't dream of reaching out a hand in brotherly love, fraternal sympathy, I'm revolted by the thought of them. The prettiest of them wouldn't make any difference. They're horrible people. If you ask them, what does any of this mean? They would say, it means that the AIDS victims are eternally in debt to Yoko Ono because of Hiroshima. And they would agree. They would go, yes, master, because of the control narrative that they are trying to outlaw, contradicting with evidence. They refuse to hear the evidence. They refused to allow me to go to school for decades. They refused to address my legal concerns. They stood there and said, boo-hoo, when I was given Parkinson's, when I was poisoned in the mouth with every indication that it was by the people behind COVID-19. And they continue to cry their crocodile slumlord. Who cares if it spreads? Kick out the grannies with COVID. Tears for sale over the Jewish people who did all of it, ripping off our museums. It's anti-Semitism to even admit the letters of Gail Burstyn existed, much less read the copies that are bona fide and established as true. To even admit they even exist in copy, they say is anti-Semitism. To read her words and acknowledge what she had to say, they claim is anti-Semitism. So it can't be done. It's against the law. It's officially blacked out, with death row haunting an American, because I came from the Peace Corps movement, the public schools movement. They are outlawing the right to protect our children. They hate the idea that our children are safe, despise it. Yoko Ono tears the carpets of the Decoita building with her jaws in animosity for the idea that any child in the United States of American public school system is safe from her Boy Scouts, armed and deadly with Glocks and AK-47s, whatever the hell they are. They hate the United States. Mick Jagger hates the United States. Israel hates the United States. They put me forward as a symbolic laughingstock to celebrate the success of that hatred. They attacked me blindside as an 11-year-old. I couldn't get help from the schools, from the police, from my friends, from my family, from the house next door, from the State Department, from the legislators, from the governors in adjacent states, from the Board of Corrections, from the municipal police, from the county police, from the state police, from the President of the United States. Nobody came to help. They sat there gyrating around this stupid claim that Reagan didn't know and Lenin was a messiah to a victim of genocide that they want the people who are victims of to be loyal to Access Hollywood, who pulled it. Cars, cars, cars. Jobs, jobs, jobs. Movies, movies, movies. That's all that Fu Manchu zombie Biden ever thinks about.